welcome back to BLOCKTV, where it is time for cryptonomics on this very tumultuous, one can argue, week. Price surges, geopolitical grandstanding, and all that elusive causality between Tether and Bitcoin price movement. Now, to make sense of all of it, I'm joined, luckily for me, in studio by none other than senior correspondent Usher Westropp-Evans. Lovely to have you here.
Pleasure.
And to start with, we were reporting this at the time of an approximate 11% surge. My God, look at that. Surge of Bitcoin over the last 24 hours. Many questions remain or arise. And as the website Bitcoinist aptly put it, just yesterday, the Bitcoin price sentiment was starting to turn bearish as markets began to cool off. Many were talking about this is where it's staving off. But, of course, today it has surged back in an epic 11% pump back towards approaching 13,000. Usher, what the heck is going on?
Well, yeah, let's take a quick look at the charts here first, just to see how it all played out. So we saw a rapid increase. We're looking at the hourly chart here for Bitcoin US dollar. We saw a rapid increase right up to, as you said, that threshold hovering at around 12,800 it peaked at. It sort of hovered there and is now, at the time of filming, dropped down to around 12,550 or thereabouts, but still a massive surge from where it was. As you said, a double-digit surge from where it's been hovering over the last few days. And it's an interesting one, Yael, because as you said, sentiment seemed to be shifting. In terms of volume, in terms of activity, there seemed to be downward trends. There seemed to be more of a reticence that, hey, maybe we're going to sit here for a while, move sideways.
We're sitting in the correction. Not only that, some people, or members of the sphere, Peter Brandt, I believe, was arguing that we are heading towards an 80% drop.
He predicted a possibility of an 80% drop, that there could happen. Got to be careful. Some have mischaracterized him, and he's gotten upset with them in the past. So I want to be careful. He said there was a possibility there could be an 80% pullback. I mean, ultimately, everyone is still bullish in the longer term, but there were many predicting that there will be this pullback, and the massive movements we've seen so far in 2019 do need to have some sort of correction.
And at the time of taping this, that pullback is yet non-existent. But let's talk about the surge. People are talking about whale activity.
Yes, certainly. So it was reported, as Whale Alert on Twitter, we reported around $500 million worth of Bitcoin changed hands coming from unknown wallets. We're seeing whale activity. We don't know who, we don't know what, but it seems, according to analysis, not to have been from exchanges. So this is actual either private or organizational holders moving massive amounts of Bitcoin.
I wonder if there's like an email that goes up, move it through the whales.
Yeah, who knows? Yeah, who knows what's going on in this back channel, whether this is one whale controlling multiple wallets, whether this is multiple people in play here, but massive whale activity, and many are saying that could be that surge, that pump.
That surge. And then now, but important to argue, this could also be ahead of a dump. In the end of the day, all of this is theories. Another, not really a theory, because the correlation is evident, the causation, not so much. Tether, parallel to all of this, did what?
They minted rather, another $100 million in Tether.
Within the last 24 hours.
Exactly, which seems to correlate very closely, again, with a surge in Bitcoin. Now, there are many theories out there as to what's going on, and again, as you say, correlation perhaps maybe not proven, but showing certainly there, but causation is the matter. Is the printing leading to the bump? Are the bumps leading to the printing?
Chicken and the egg.
Which is coming first? There are many theories speculating around there from we'll call them the tinfoil hat conspiracy theorists, who say that it's all Tether is behind the pump, that they're buying up Bitcoin en masse, this is all fake market manipulation, to others saying, look, this is a natural byproduct of the market. People want Tether as a secure place to keep their digital assets when they're worried about volatility, and this is a natural growth. Remains to be seen, but certainly we cannot forget that ongoing Bitfinex relationship and the iFinex, their parent company, with the issues with the New York AG, which has since been dropped, but still, it hovers over the whole Tether system and the whole marketplace, and there are some that worry this is a real risk and a real choke point in the whole industry.
Entirely, and it'll be hard to to actually run away from those arguments. But we're going to pivot, because parallel to all of this, and the good news, the green up, so to speak, there are geopolitical movements that people like to relate as a narrative to Bitcoin et al. And digital money and Libra. China ups the ante. The cause and effect, of course, of theories on the fluctuation is something that we will always try to figure out. But China chimed in this week with unconfirmed, well, I don't know if they're unconfirmed, but because one of the newspapers there is actually the state paper, talking about developing their own cryptocurrency.
Exactly. We're getting these reports out of the South China Morning Post, which has been known as a mechanism that the Chinese government utilizes to sort of spread their information, particularly to the wider world, the English language market, to the wider market. They use that as a mechanism. And they are reporting that China is looking into, and has since 2014, been looking into building their own form of cryptocurrency with an urgency that began in 2017. They actually argue that the People's Bank of China was the first central bank to look into cryptocurrencies and digital assets internally. Whether that's true or not, well, we'll see.
Exactly.
I mean, I'm not going to call state propaganda or otherwise, but regardless, they're saying that that's an active approach they're taking, which is very interesting given China's overall attitudes towards digital assets, which has been pretty cool, we'll say.
Pretty
certainly
cool.
from the
They were
regulatory
very
level.
I mean, just like the Russians were very adamant about saying "niet" to the Libra when that was announced. It's pretty obvious China's not going to touch it. But that the battle between who leads that type of monetary finances.
Well, exactly right, Yael. I mean, that's the thing. Are we setting up a potential currency war going on in the digital world here, where we have an East versus West situation, or even just the powers playing out themselves? If Russia is producing their own, if China has their own, if the Libra is a de facto for Western business
Exactly,
interests.
and you know, just to compound that, shall I say, you know, theory, let's pull in the President of the United States.
Of course.
Because this tweet last week that was covered heavily by the mainstream media. I'm quoting the President of the United States, Donald Trump, a tweet that people, you know, dissected. China and Europe playing big currency manipulation game and pumping money into their system in order to compete with USA. We should match or continue being the dummies who sit back and politely watch as other countries continue to play their game as they have for many years. Setting aside the discussion about a president of the United States using the word dummies in a press release, but that said...
Is Twitter press releases? Who knows anymore?
I don't know. But that said, this is a tweet that actually solidifies this war you just discussed.
Exactly. This is a full-blown currency war statement, whether it's true or not, whether, as you say, Twitter is a formal press release or this is just musing speculations while he gets up early in the morning. Who's to say what this actually means geopolitically? But certainly it sets the stage for a real currency war that could be playing out. And there could be, again, behind the scenes, what we're seeing is a potential risk for manipulation. Now, we've seen that Trump has come out strongly pushing Jerome Powell, the Federal Reserve Chairman, to cut reserve rates in order to lower the US dollar, in order to push down some of those pressures and weaken the dollar, something that Trump sees as incredibly important in his trade war, because he wants to see the US become a net exporter again. Lower dollar makes it cheaper to export your goods, and it makes people want to bring business back to America, as he would say, and start exporting it. Trouble is, the US...
with lower dollar is what?
Exactly. The US has been a net importer since about the 1950s, so it's a little problematic for those companies. The US is known as the global consumer for a reason. They net import, and when the dollar is low, it makes it much more expensive to import. So the economics of how this will play out on a macro level are confounding and difficult, but certainly those in the crypto sphere who evangelize cryptocurrency as a whole will say, well, look at this manipulation that's going on here. Why not go something a little more decentralized?
Decentralized that people can trust.
Beholden to it.
That narrative is something that was actually well connected to our next item completely, because as all of this is happening back in the farm that is Europe, Deutsche Bank AG is, I don't want to say, completely falling apart, but definitely spiraling out of control. The oldest established banking institution of 150-year-old is firing a fifth of its staff. That's 20,000 people. That's nearly half of Frankfurt, as has been massively reported. This carnage, people are trying to relate it to the price surge. Are they? I
mean, look, there are certainly those within the sphere who are saying that Bitcoin now is coming into play. This is Satoshi Nakamoto's vision played in reality. This is, the fall of the banking sector will be the rise of Bitcoin. I think that's a little premature, perhaps. This is all a possible narrative, but let's remember the entire market cap of cryptos as a whole is sitting now, as of today, I mean, there was a bump, let me see, but we're around, 336 million total market cap. That's pittance, that's small change to any in the banking sector. But still, there is the argument that Deutsche Bank is falling, that it's weaker, and certainly the fact that it is firing 20% of its staff is not a good sign for the banking sector as a whole, and particularly concerning for European banking and potential cascade and ripple effects.
Not only
into
that, I
wider
mean, they're
banking.
putting in nearly 90 billion of derivatives into what they call a bad bank to try and stabilize balance sheets, which, by the way, is exactly what banks did in 2008.
Exactly. The global recession. It's a really, and whereas the global recession back in 2008 was started from the subprime bubble pop in the US, it's very possible, and many have speculated for a long time, that Europe could lead the charge in this sense. There's so many banking elements and so many financial sectors tied to the German banking sector, particularly as the powerhouse of the European economy and the driver. If Deutsche Bank really is going into the sort of trouble that a lot of the fundamentals suggest that it is, and certainly firing a fifth of your staff is implicit that there could be some
and
serious
they have
problems.
essentially 2 years to come back to go above water.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what the strategy looks about. One of the interesting things to conclude that a former, and just to trail several Deutsche AG Bank employees on Twitter who were, I saw that last week, who were all saying it's lovely to come to work and look for a job. But one of them apparently left a while ago, and this was a great tweet, I think. There we go, there we have it. When I left Deutsche Bank last year, I'm sure many of my coworkers thought I was taking too big of a risk going into crypto. I thought they were taking the greater risk by staying.
And this is Mario DeMarco, who co-founded Delphi Digital. So, I mean, he really took a full step into the crypto sphere, and it seems, at least in hindsight, he was proven to have made the right
right,
step.
and that was the Nakamoto apropos original narrative.
Certainly so. That is moving those banking executives, moving them out of the banking sector, moving them into this decentralized, trustless economy that allows people to work for the interests of their own selves without having a centralizing power that controls it. That's all part of the wider vision. Again, I think it's a bit
too early, but we're looking
presumptuous to say that the whole thing's falling apart. However, I mean, in fact, actually, this could be seen as a good move for Deutsche Bank in the longer term as they restructure, they build, they regrow. But again, it doesn't look great from the outside, at least at this this vantage point.
Entirely so. Wunderbar, as we say back in the homeland. But just to summarize this, all of this, the theorizing doesn't really negate the fact that Bitcoin is up at the time of taping this, reaching almost 13,000. This is the middle of July. Let's see where it hits. Cryptonomics for us. We'll be right back.
For more news and updates, follow us on Twitter.